I don't know about you, but are there actually any of you who have seen this anime? To my shame, I have to admit that until a few years ago, I hadn't even heard of this anime. We are of course talking about Fruits Basket, an anime that was adapted in 2001 from the manga on which it is based on, which in turn was published from 1998 to 2006. Of course, after the manga ended, a certain fanbase continued to exist, but over the years, the popularity flattened inexorably, and the anime, a victim of time, remained an unfinished product as the rest of the manga was never adapted. But in 2019, thanks to the work of the animation studio TMS Entertainment, Fruits Basket made a furious comeback. In the 18 years that have now passed after the first adaptation, the quality of the animation had improved significantly, and the fact that the manga was not yet completed at the time of the 2001 series, what was now, benefited the new version immensely. For me personally, Fruits Basket is now one of the best shoujo anime ever, and has earned its status as a real classic of its genre. Despite this, the anime still isn't part of the mainstream. So in this video, I want to explain what makes Fruits Basket so special to me. And if you've never heard of Fruits Basket before, or watched the anime, maybe I can get you to give Fruits Basket a chance. For those of you who don't know what Fruits Basket is about, the plot can actually be summed up quite briefly. A teenage girl, Honda Tooru, finds herself forced to live alone in the woods after the death of her mother, because no one in the family wants or is able to take care of her. Her grandfather, with whom she stays temporarily, asks her to look for other accommodation due to renovations at his house, which leads to Tooru deciding to live in a tent. And as luck would have it, Tooru pitches her tent right on the property of the Souma family, whose members eventually ask her to live with them for the time of the renovations. In doing so, Tooru reveals a shocking secret of the Soumas. If they are hugged by a person of the opposite sex, they transform into a corresponding animal of the Chinese Zodiac. Of course, difficult situations arise in everyday life, which have to be overcome again and again. Fruits Basket presents the viewer the pain of the individual characters in a variety of ways, and shows how they try to deal with it and are desperately looking for a way out of their emotional problems. Everyone suffers for themselves and in their own way. And I really don't want to go into each problem individually in this video, or how the characters ultimately find a solution to their problems, but rather take a look at the big picture. Because there may be more to Fruits Basket than meets the eye at first glance. Alright, let's start by establishing the overarching theme of this anime: the longing for love. It's logical that no one in this world can live without love, and when nobody loves you, well, you just want it all the more. The members of the Souma clan all carry their own traumas, always related to the withdrawal of love, usually connected to their personal secret and the resulting rejection by others. But not only they are plagued by this pain, Tooru herself or other characters also had to learn to deal with this burden of their past. Likewise, all those who carry this despair in their hearts must learn to accept themselves. Whether they were rejected by their mother, had to give up the love of their life, or were given the feeling that they are a disgrace for their parents, they were all hurt equally bad. The anime tries to give each character space to breathe, and, despite being divided into main and supporting characters, does not put one above the other. Everyone and their respective problems are equally important. The romance aspect also comes into play in this regard, as for the first time in their lives, certain characters feel love for someone else, in this case Honda Tooru, but relationships develop between other characters too. But they cannot show or admit their love until they have fought their own demons. As RuPaul once said, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you gonna love somebody else? That someone like RuPaul pointed this out is quite fitting, given an additional theme of the series, which is the disillusion of classic gender roles. Looking at Tooru, many might object that she's actually being relegated to the role of a typical housewife at the service of the men she's living with. While it is true that Tooru does take care of them, be it cleaning or cooking, Tooru has never been a servant to the Soumas, even though the anime may suggest it. In fact, from the beginning to the end of the series, Tooru was the most independent person of all, and was presented to us as a near-perfect human being, seemingly not needing anybody else. Always happy and constantly having a smile on her face. But even that is a misconception. The behavior on the outside is only the manifestation of the emotional interdependence of both parties who long for mutual closeness and belonging. Each needs the other, and together they can begin their quest for inner peace. In this respect, the woman is not placed alongside the man as an accessory, but experiences the same significance and importance, here even more than usual, since she naturally attracts more focus as the main character of the series. Concentrating even more on the idea of gender roles, you quickly notice the increasing feminization of men. One is put in a dress because he looks cute in it, and others put on women's clothes because they just feel more comfortable in them. Finally, there's even a confrontation between two characters, where one is asked whether he has any male pride at all because of his choice of clothes, whereupon the one who is being asked starts to cry and says that he thinks that it just suits him better. A third member of the group then loses his composure and snaps at the questioner what is on his mind and asks him the counter question whether normally dressed people are never evil or do evil, and all those who deviate from the norm should be ostracized. Thus, even though the source material is over 25 years old, Fruits Basket provides a perfectly fitting commentary on the wokeness debate that has been going on in our society for years. This anime promotes acceptance and equality in a way that is only seen in the LGBTQ community these days, and is way ahead of its time in its modern take. Because if you look at Japanese society and the acceptance of homosexual people or transgender people, it is still much lower compared to the Western world, and 25 years ago, it was much more extreme.
3歳ぐらいからもう自分はゲイだってことを分かってました。ずっと小さい頃から僕の話し方や身のこなしが他の男子と違うからとひどい暴力を振るわれていました。僕は僕であってはいけない、誰かのふりをしなくてはいけないなんだとずっとそう思っていたんです。
In this regard, I'd like to mention a comment by the right-wing and conservative political commentator and reporter Matt Walsh, best known for his work as a journalist for the Daily Wire. For your information, people like the political commentator Ben Shapiro, who co-founded the organization, or the famous psychologist Jordan Peterson are also writing for the Daily Wire. Matt Walsh once said in a video of his that he considers anime to be satanic, though he couldn't give a specific reason for his statement.
Daily Wire host who called anime satanic blasted by real Satanists. Oh well, if real Satanists are angry about it, then I guess I'm more right than I ever realized.
Even if that was just sarcastic, as many of his followers say, and which could well be the case, it would be hard to find a reason why Walsh is thinking that way. Taking Fruits Basket as an example, this anime contradicts any beliefs held by Walsh and his colleagues at the Daily Wire.
You look like ein schönes Mädchen.
In his hugely popular documentary, What is a Woman?, Walsh uses trickily asked questions to try to convey to viewers that transgender ideology and everything that goes with it is something inherently bad and wrong, and that men should behave like men and women like women. In this documentary, Walsh gives a speech centered around the use of school toilets and locker rooms that align with one's gender identity. That's what he said to those who felt they belonged to a different gender or did not share his views.
I would thank you all for allowing me to speak to you tonight, but you tried not to allow it, yet here I am. Now, you only give us 60 seconds, so let me get to the point. You are all child abusers. You prey upon impressionable children and indoctrinate them into your insane ideological cult, a cult which holds many fanatical views, but none so deranged as the idea that boys are girls and girls are boys.
Walsh's statement might be shocking to many people, but it's just a condensed message of what conservatives have been preaching to the people for the past years. The manifestation of this political conviction is becoming more and more noticeable in today's society. The most prominent example might be the surge of book bans in the US, especially in Florida. To quickly summarize it, laws have been passed in conservative states that make it possible for each district to remove books in schools that are covering a different point of view when it comes to topics like gender, race, or sexuality.
So a lot of that, what's been going on, is an attempt to create a political narrative. And it's a false political narrative, and that's bad enough as it is, I guess. But for me, the important thing is that's a false narrative in service of using our schools for indoctrination rather than education.
Although Florida's governor, Ron DeSantis, claims that all of this happens to remove pornography and to not let schools be used for indoctrination, one can't help but think this law serves the sole purpose of continuing the fight against the LGBTQ community and, as radical as it may sound, make them disappear off the map. Most of the time it's actually the parents who encourage this specific campaign, because they believe they have to protect their children from supposedly evil ideas, while in reality they are just afraid of change and desperately cling to a simple and uncomplicated world that knows no diversity, only unchangeable gender roles and traditional relationships. But that's not how our society works anymore. This allows us to build the bridge to Fruits Basket, because here, as I've elaborated in the beginning of this video, the parents are despising their children because of their otherness. The Zodiac curse is merely a metaphor for deviating from the norm. The point is that parents reject their child because their child didn't turn out the way they wanted them to be, or because their child doesn't fit into their worldview or didn't meet their expectations. In the series, it results in physical and psychological abuse, which is extremely hard to watch. For the most part though, I thought the manga's creator was exaggerating greatly, as I couldn't believe that parents would really treat their children that way, simply because they're not like everyone else. In this regard, I was the one who was deluded. Because in everyday life, there are stories of all kinds of people who were rejected and abused due to a wide variety of circumstances. If we now go back to the political level, examples of this can also be found here. Not too long ago, the Montana lawmaker, Carrie Seekins Crow, who is part of the Republican Party, stated that she would prefer her daughter committing suicide rather than ever coming out as trans. During that same speech, she openly told that her daughter struggled with suicidal thoughts for years and called those thoughts emotional manipulation.
Someone once asked me, wouldn't I just do anything to help save her? And I really had to think. And the answer was no.
Could you ever imagine how you would feel if your own mother said something like this about you? I certainly couldn't. Though Fruits Basket doesn't make this aforementioned political debate central to its story, the message that the anime wants to transport is inevitably obvious. The openness towards people who feel trapped in their own skin and want to break out is not only tolerated, no, those characters are encouraged to stand up for themselves and are trying to learn to accept themselves. Some would object that this is a typical theme that appears in an awful lot of anime, but I must defend Fruits Basket for taking this idea to a new level by unambiguously emphasizing real-world social issues that other anime often only vaguely touch upon in their execution. But apart from all these deeper messages, Fruits Basket manages to give us the opportunity to develop a strong bond with all of the characters. They are all special in their own way and represent very different character traits, some of which are so exaggerated that they can almost be regarded as caricatures. The anime recreates everyday situations, but cleverly combines them with humor, creatively making viewers laugh. There's never a dull moment, because the anime doesn't just keep repeating the same gags, and instead is making use of each character's quirks.
Pathetic. It's really no wonder you're still a virgin.
You can't just say crap like that! Don't you have any shame?
As already mentioned, there are dramatic and heartbreaking situations, which without a doubt appear believable. Therefore, you become part of this world and are involved, and you get full participation in the feelings of the characters. Admittedly, at first I thought that Fruits Basket is just another slice of life anime that just bobs along without a common thread. Although this may be true in the first few episodes, and the anime needs its time to pick up speed, the plot steadily intensifies and reaches a grandiose finale. The antagonist hovers like a dark cloud over the remaining members of the Souma family, although I don't want to reveal too much about that person or the curse behind the secret of the Souma clan. However, if you're in any doubt about the first 2 seasons as to where the story is headed, I totally recommend that you should definitely keep watching, as Fruits Basket develops in an unparalleled and breathtaking fashion, story and characters equally. And as all of this happens, Fruits Basket manages to ask life's fundamental questions. How do I deal with grief? How do I overcome my emotional problems? And how do I learn to deal with them? And how I can manage to be there for others and for myself, and to become the person that the people around me deserve. Fruits Basket is a wonderful anime that is the right mix of humor, drama, and tragedy, and has the heart in the right place. Especially in times like these, when we all have to ask the question how we want to treat ourselves and others, with what respect we want to treat other people, and whether we can believe in changing ourselves, whether we can believe that we don't have to let our negative feelings rule us. This anime is like a shining star in the sky. Fruits Basket manages to walk the fine line between the typical wit and drama that an anime can create, and the all too typical situations and accompanying pain that each of us has experienced at one time or another. And although somebody like Matt Walsh probably couldn't stop vomiting when watching Fruits Basket, and Ron DeSantis on the other hand would throw the manga right into the fire, I personally would be very happy if more anime like this would be made.